In a small town by the national highway, there was a dead-end alley behind the district market. At the end of that alley stood a shabby drink stall with a rusty tin roof. The place was open from dawn until late at night, run by an old woman everyone called Granny Lou. Outsiders paid no attention to it, thinking it was just another cheap roadside stall like countless others. But there was something strange. Over the past 3 months, anyone who sat at the table next to the guava tree in front of the stall either fell ill or left town for good, never returning. Every twilight at exactly 6 o'clock, a girl in a gray coat with a pale white face would sit in that worn-out chair. She never ordered anything, never spoke a word, just sat still like a statue, eyes fixed on the rotting roots of the guava tree. And every time she left, there were 3 knocks on the tin wall behind the stall, even though no one was standing inside at the time. At first, people thought she was mentally ill. But then one day, a child screamed in the middle of the market, shouting, "The lady under the guava tree is staring at me." After that, no one dared go near the drink stall behind the alley again. That eerie story began on a misty, drizzle-filled evening at the end of the month, when Granny Lou was cleaning up her tables and chairs. That night, the girl in the gray coat looked up and spoke for the very first time. In that small town by the highway, there was a narrow dead-end alley behind the district market, just wide enough for 2 motorbikes to pass each other. The place was always littered with trash, reeking of old, stagnant sewage. At the very end stood an old drink stall with a rusted tin roof. Wooden table legs so decayed they seemed ready to collapse. The stall was owned by Granny Lou, a woman over 60 with wrinkled skin, a hoarse voice like a male duck, and her hair always tied up high with a plastic clip. People said she had lived alone there for over 20 years. Back in her youth, she followed her husband to this town to sell tea. He died, her child passed away, and she lived on with nothing but an old black dog guarding the entrance. Granny Lou's stall used to be lively. Motorbike taxi drivers, fish vendors, and school kids would stop by for iced tea and peanut candy. But recently, customers dwindled. Some fell ill. Others claimed to feel a cold chill down their spines. Over time, the place became deserted, only visited by a few idlers like Thin Tin, Lamb the taffy seller, and Hi, the drifter. They jokingly called Granny Lou great-grandma, and all owed her a cup or 2 of iced tea. One morning, before the sun had risen above the market's roof, Granny Lou was already setting up her tables and chairs. Her old dog Muck barked weakly and then lay down on the ground, breathing heavily. In front of the stall stood a large guava tree, as thick as a man's embrace. Its bark was rough and scarred, branches spreading wide like a parasol shading the dusty red earth. In the past, children used to play hide and seek there. But ever since someone claimed to have seen a black shadow standing upside down under the tree, everyone avoided it. One boy named Hone once skipped school to kick a can there. That night, he came home with a fever, screaming in his sleep, "She's standing by my bed. She's wearing a gray coat." For about 3 months now, every evening at exactly 6, a girl in a gray coat with a pale face and long hair cascading over her shoulders came and sat at the wooden table next to the guava tree. She never ordered anything or spoke. She just sat still, staring at the tree. At first, Granny Lou asked, "Would you like something to drink?" But the girl didn't answer, only shook her head. A few days later, Granny Lou stopped asking. The girl came every day at the same time, sat for an hour, stood up at 7, and walked away without a word, like she had a clock ticking inside her. One time, Granny Lou tried to follow her, but as soon as the girl turned the corner at the end of the alley, she vanished. Granny Lou got goosebumps and never dared look at her for long again. That morning, when Thin Tin arrived, Granny Lou brought out the tea kettle and said aloud, "Here you are again, freeloading as always?" Tin yawned and flopped down on a creaky chair. "Granny, it's hard enough to deal with the living, Who would bother hating someone who just sits there not drinking or saying a word? Lamb chimed in. I heard it clearly. The day that gray coat girl stood up, I heard 3 knocks on the tin wall. I thought it was Granny Lou. But she was standing right in front of me. Hai scratched his head and said, something's off about this stall. The shadow from that guava tree leans right during the day. But at night, it leans left, and the streetlight's been broken for ages. So where's the shadow coming from? Granny Lou snapped. Shut your mouths, you lot, talking nonsense. My stall used to be full of laughter. But now it's all ghosts and ghouls. Who would dare come anymore? Tin licked his lips and chuckled. Then stop selling for a day. Let's see if that gray coat girl still shows up. Don't assume she's human. Granny Lou stood up abruptly and slammed her broom on the chair. Say one more word and I'll curse you till your ears ring. That evening, heavy clouds gathered low as if rain was coming. The wind howled through the tin roof, making it groan and whine. Granny Lou sat inside, glancing out at the guava tree. At exactly 6 o'clock, the gray coat girl arrived. That day, she sat a little longer than usual. Granny Lou felt a strange sensation, like something was closing in. When the girl stood up, before turning to leave, she looked straight into Granny Lou's eyes. Her lips moved as if saying something. Granny Lou froze, throat dry and tight. Behind her, the tin wall echoed 3 knocks, clack, clack, clack. The old dog Muck jumped up and howled a long eerie cry. The customers inside fell silent, looking at one another. No one dared say a word. The gray coat girl was gone, but the chair still felt warm, and on the table sat a glass of iced tea, half full. No one in the stall had served it. That night, Granny Lou couldn't sleep, tossing and turning, until nearly midnight. She sat up, startled by her dog barking frantically. She opened the door. No one was there. But under the guava tree, she saw it clearly. Someone was standing with their back to her, facing the trunk, long hair flowing down, hands clasped behind, dressed in a pale gray coat. Ban zem on chua, noi kan lam them ban phu da. Jeong dak, hoak an thumbnail theo truyen na tin nyan min ne. Ever since the night Granny Lou saw the girl in the gray coat standing with her back to the guava tree, she hadn't been able to sleep for 2 nights straight. Her eyes were sunken, her face pale like someone recovering from illness. The next morning, unlike her usual early routine, she didn't open the stall until after 8 o'clock, staggering out with trembling hands holding a kettle of water. The old black dog, Muck, kept circling under the table, occasionally stopping to glare toward the guava tree and growling low in its throat. The regulars took notice. Some scooted their chairs farther away, while others nudged each other with smirks. Thin Tin crossed one leg over the other, chewing noisily on a piece of ginger candy Granny Lou had left on the table, and said with a mouth half full, Granny Lou's not looking too good these days. Maybe that gray coat girl came back to remind her of something last night? Hi, the drifter, tapping his fingers on the tabletop, added, I saw her. You know, that girl isn't normal. Her face was pale, like someone who's been soaked in water for days. Yesterday, I passed by just as she stood up. She glanced at me, and my spine turned to ice. Lamb, Taffy, chimed in. Maybe she looked at you with pity. Your face is more wrinkled than hers. They all burst out laughing, and Granny Lou slammed the kettle down with a sharp clank and snapped. You lot talk like you were raised in the streets. Not a single day goes by without you gossiping about someone. Always ghosts and spirits. Just wait until you run into one for real. Then don't come crying to me. That afternoon was scorching hot. The whole market was deserted, everyone hiding from the sun. But Granny Lou still set out the wooden table under the guava tree, with that old rotten chair, waiting. At 10 minutes to 6, she was already sitting there, rubbing an old handkerchief, eyes fixed on the alley. At exactly 6 o'clock, as always, the gray coat girl appeared. Same outfit, same white slippers, same slow, weightless walk. She sat down without a word, eyes locked on the base of the guava tree. Granny Lou poured a glass of iced tea and placed it on the table, then turned her face away. But today, something was different. Another person showed up, a man around 40, wearing a faded gray shirt, plastic sandals, his hair cropped short, a small scar on his cheek. He walked in behind the girl in gray and sat at the next table. Thin Tin and the others sitting inside nudged each other. "Hey, who's that? Never seen him before." "What? He likes the guava tree too?" Hai squinted. "Looks familiar. I think he used to be a gas station guard. Quit years ago. Vanished ever since." The man sat down and nodded at Granny Lou. "Good evening. I'll have a glass of iced tea." His voice was low and steady, but for some reason, it sent chills down Granny Lou's spine. The moment the glass hit the table, Muck howled a long eerie cry and bolted. Lamb cursed. "What's wrong with that dog lately? Barks at everyone. Now it just runs off? Crazy mutt." The girl in the gray coat sat still, eyes never leaving the tree. The man suddenly turned and asked, "Are you still waiting for someone?" She didn't respond. Granny Lou flinched. It was the first time anyone had spoken to that girl like that. The man continued, "I remember this tree. Someone died here, long ago. Do you have anything to do with it?" Right at that moment, a gust of wind blew in strong, despite the sky showing no sign of rain. Guava leaves fell all around, swirling into a ring at the girl's feet. The glass of iced tea tipped over on its own, water spilling across the table though no one had touched it. The man froze, swallowed hard, then abruptly stood up and walked away. Footsteps quick like someone being chased. The others inside scrambled to their feet to watch. Hai whispered, "Granny Lou, did you see his hand? Was that blood?" Granny Lou didn't answer. Her face had gone pale. She had just caught a glimpse of the man's left palm, bright red, like it had been burned, swollen with pus, but only for a moment, then it vanished. That night, the man came back, but he didn't sit at the table. He stood lurking behind the guava tree. Thin Tin, who was relieving himself behind the stall, turned around and nearly fainted. That man was whispering to someone beneath the tree, holding a stick of red incense in one hand, the other clawing at the dirt. He muttered, "I'm sorry, please don't drag me down, don't." Tin bolted into the stall, drenched in sweat, speechless. Lamb looked at his pale face and asked, "What did you see?" He just shook his head and pointed at the tree. When they all rushed outside, there was no one. Only a half-burned stick of incense, stuck crookedly beside the guava roots. The girl in the gray coat never came back after that. But on the third night, someone heard a soft crying sound beneath the tree, not a woman's voice, but a man's, choked and sobbing. A week later, they found the man's body bloated, floating in the ditch at the end of the alley. His left hand was tightly clutching a piece of faded gray fabric, like part of someone's sleeve. It had been drizzling since early morning, the kind of light rain that lingers all day without stopping. Most of the regulars didn't want to get dirty, so hardly anyone stopped by, except for Mr. Wah, the motorbike driver, who still pulled up to Granny Lou's stall like he always did. He was in his 50s, thin, with a slight hunch in his back, always wearing a faded fabric cap and carrying a damp hand towel, even when the weather was chilly. Back in the day, Mr. Wah was well known around the neighborhood for his speedy driving, smooth talking, and especially for knowing all the local gossip. People said he once fell deeply in love with a girl named Twee. But for some unknown reason, they split up. Since then, he had remained single, spending his days quietly smoking beside a glass of iced tea. Granny Lou wiped down a table and gave him a side eye. "Good grief. Coming out in this rain? Business that bad you can't stay home?" Mr. Wah pulled out a chair and gave a crooked smile. "Who said it's bad? I already had one ride this morning, from the morgue to the cemetery. First customer of the month. Maybe that's lucky." Granny Lou snorted. "Lucky? Huh? The living don't always get that kind of send-off." I heard the yin energy's heavy this month. Haven't you heard people whispering about the strange things happening at the guava tree? Mr. Wah took a sip of tea, then said slowly, "It's not just rumors. I've seen it." Thin, Tin and Hai, the drifter, had just arrived. Hearing that, they slid over to the table. One hadn't even pulled out a chair yet before blurting, "Wait, what? You saw what?" Mr. Wah stayed quiet for a moment, then began to speak. "A few nights ago, I had a dream. In it, I was riding my bike, and there was a woman in a gray coat sitting behind me. Long hair falling down, her head resting on my back. The wind was blowing so hard I couldn't breathe, but I couldn't stop riding. When I looked back, her face was ghostly pale, and her eyes had no pupils. I woke up drenched in sweat. Shirt stuck to my skin like I just bathed." Thin Tin gasped, "Damn, that sounds just like the girl who sits at the guava tree." "Keep going." Mr. Wah nodded. "I thought it was just a dream. But the next morning, right where I usually sit here at the stall, there was a clump of long hair. Tangled like a bird's nest. Still wet from the rain. Granny Lou, didn't you see it that day?" Granny Lou narrowed her eyes. "I threw it in the fire." "Why are you asking all these creepy questions?" By late afternoon, the sky was still gray. Granny Lou's stall had only a few customers. But right at 6 o'clock, the girl in the gray coat appeared again. This time, as soon as she sat down, she lifted her head and looked straight at Mr. Wah. Her face was blank, but her eyes seemed to hold something, like blame. Mr. Wah suddenly shot up from his seat, nearly spilling his tea, his face pale like someone was choking him. Granny Lou rushed over. "What's wrong with you?" He didn't answer, just stammered. "Twee, she looks exactly like Twee when she was young, except her eyes. The whole stall fell silent. Everyone felt a chill. The girl didn't say a word. She just sat for a while longer, then stood up and walked away. As soon as she left, 3 knocks echoed from the tin wall behind Granny Lou. At that moment, there was no wind, no barking dogs, but everyone heard it clearly. That night, Mr. Wah returned home and opened an old wooden chest that had been locked and gathering dust for years. He pulled out a faded photograph. In it, a young Mr. Wah stood beside a long-haired girl in a floral dress, both smiling softly. The photo was old, but the eyes of the girl in it were exactly like those of the gray coat girl from earlier that day. He murmured, "Twee, have you really come back?" That night, he dreamed again. In the dream, he was standing beneath the guava tree, holding a bunch of red burning incense. The girl in the gray coat stood just 1 step away, whispering, "You once said you'd wait for me forever. Why did you let them seal the well? Why didn't you light a stick of incense for me?" The next morning, he arrived at the stall very early. As soon as he saw Granny Lou, he asked, "Do you remember the well behind the stall from back then?" Granny Lou squinted at him. "Why are you asking about something from over a decade ago? That well was filled in. Now it's a little storage room." "Why?" Mr. Wah swallowed hard, his voice trembling. "Back then, when Twee disappeared, do you remember?" Granny Lou clenched her cleaning cloth. "I thought you'd forgotten. She was pregnant, rumored to have been abandoned by you. The night she disappeared, someone saw her walking toward the stall, and then she was never seen again. Later, the well was filled in, and you moved away for almost a year." Mr. Wah looked down, lips pressed tight. After a moment, he spoke softly. "I didn't abandon Twee. That night, I got into an accident, spent nearly a month in the hospital. When I woke up, she was already gone. I didn't have the courage to come back." That evening, when the sky turned dark, Mr. Wah brought a bundle of incense and placed it in front of the guava tree. The girl in the gray coat didn't show up, but as soon as he lit the incense, the flame flared up, bright blue. He sat there until late at night, silent, not saying a word. People passing by saw an old man sitting quietly in the dim light. And beside him was his shadow, and another smaller one, sitting close, long hair covering the shoulders, her head leaning gently on his. The story of Mr. Wah, the motorbike driver lighting incense beneath the guava tree and sitting there all night, had the whole market buzzing for days. Some believed it, others were skeptical, and one fish vendor even whispered, "He must have wronged someone, and now the spirits come back to collect." Thin Tin kept retelling the tale of Mr. Wah dreaming about the girl in the gray coat, each time more dramatic, adding made-up details like how Mr. Wah got possessed and almost jumped into the well. Granny Lou was furious when she heard, pointed straight at him and snapped, "I forbid you to mention that well again. Your mouth never stops spewing nonsense. Keep it up and none of us will be able to eat in peace." Lamb, taffy, cut in. That's just how Tin is. Granny. Creepy stories turn into comedy with him. I laughed all the way home after hearing him last night. Things seemed to calm down, until the day Sue disappeared. Sue was the guy who often sat playing cards on the bench next to the guava tree. He was known for being wild, addicted to gambling, and basically lived at Granny Lou's stall from morning till night. Some nights, he'd even sleep at the table after drinking too much. That morning, his friends couldn't reach him by phone. They went to his rental room, found the door locked from the outside, but his sandals were still sitting out front. No one saw him all day. By evening, someone walking past the drainage ditch near the alley's entrance screamed in horror. Sue's body was found folded over on an empty patch of land next to the ditch. Strangely, his legs touched the ground, but his head was tilted skyward, eyes wide open, mouth frozen in a silent scream. His body lay in a position that looked like someone had hung him upside down and then dropped him. When the police came to examine the scene, they suggested he might have fallen while drunk, but anyone who knew Sue shook their head. He hadn't been drinking that day. And there were no visible injuries. Mr. Wah heard the news but said nothing. He quietly brought another stick of incense to the guava tree, hands trembling like he was caught in a cold spell. Thin Tin turned pale and kept muttering. He sat right where that gray coat girl always sits, and he kept saying that the shadow under the tree could talk. Maybe he really saw something. That night, just as Granny Lou was about to close up, a gust of wind blew through, strong and sudden. Even though it had been calm all day, the tin roof clattered. Cups and glasses clinked against each other. Muck, the old dog under the table, howled once, then bolted into the kitchen, burying its head into a pile of old sacks. At that moment, slow footsteps echoed from the alley, dragging sandals across the ground. Granny Lou stepped out to look but saw no one. Yet, on the wooden table by the guava tree, the glass of iced tea suddenly tipped over, water spreading into a small round puddle, as if someone had just touched it. The next morning, Sue's funeral was hastily arranged. His family was poor, couldn't afford a coffin, so the local temple helped build a makeshift wooden one. Strangely, when they brought his body back, the pallbearers said the coffin felt unusually heavy, even though Sue was a small man. And when they opened it, they found dried mud caked on his feet, despite the ground where he was found being completely dry, with no sign of water. Throughout the funeral, Sue's mother didn't say a word. Thin, frail, she held his portrait in her lap, but no tears came. When Tin, Lamb, and Hai came to light incense, the old woman said one sentence that sent chills down their spines. "He told me the night before, a girl invited him to have tea by the guava tree. He went, and never came back." That evening, no one dared go near Granny Lou's stall. It wasn't until nearly 8 o'clock that a strange man showed up, tall, scarred face, hat pulled low. He didn't order anything. He walked straight to the guava tree, pulled a bundle of incense from his pocket, lit it, and stuck it into the ground. Granny Lou came out and asked, "Who are you? Where are you from?" The man didn't answer. He only whispered, "I owe this place an apology." Later, people in the neighborhood found out that man was the old owner of the drink stall, the one who had sold the land to Granny Lou. Rumor had it that years ago, he and some others had sealed the old well behind the stall without any ceremony. just poured concrete and built a storage shed on top. There had been a girl who went missing that same year. Her name was Twee, and she had worked in his household. People say that the night after Sue's funeral, the former owner also disappeared. A few days later, he was found sitting motionless in a motel near the train station. In his hand was a piece of paper with only 4 hastily scribbled words: "Don't seal the well." The story of the landowner disappearing and leaving behind a scribbled note that said, "Don't seal the well," quickly spread through the neighborhood. The fish vendors, the old men playing chess, even the rowdy neighborhood kids were all whispering. Some of them laughed. Guess he got so scared by a ghost. He lost his mind, but Granny Lou didn't laugh. Every time she walked into the small storage room behind the kitchen, the place that used to be the old well, now sealed with concrete for over 10 years, she looked distant, lost in thought. That morning, as she was tidying up, something strange happened. While she was carrying a sack of rice across the room, the old rice jar slipped from her hands and fell to the floor. The lid popping off, she sighed and muttered, "Great, just what I needed first thing in the morning." But as she bent down to scoop up the spilled rice, her hand brushed against something cold and solid. She pulled it out to see, it was a bright golden tongue, about the length of 2 fingertips, intricately engraved with a lotus flower pattern. Granny Lou straightened up, her face frozen. She couldn't believe her eyes. That tongue, she had seen one like it before. Back in her younger days, an old shaman had once said, when someone dies unjustly and their body is thrown into a well, the only way to keep their spirit from coming back for vengeance is to place a golden tongue in their mouth and chant a spell to calm their soul. Back then, she thought it was just a ridiculous tale. But now, there it was, in her rice jar. Her hands trembling, she slipped the golden tongue into her shirt pocket, locked the kitchen door, collapsed into a chair, and poured herself a cup of tea, still shaking. That afternoon, Thin Tin, Lamb, Taffy, and Hi, the drifter, dropped by again. As soon as Tin saw Granny Lou sitting in a daze, he teased, "Hey Granny, no scolding today? Or are we just too handsome this time?" Lamb burst out laughing. "Nah, maybe she's caught a chill." Granny Lou snapped, "If you're here, sit down and shut it. My stall's already gloomy enough. Keep talking nonsense and I'll whack you with a broom." Hi leaned on the table. "No lie though, ever since Sue died, this place gives me the creeps. Hey Tin, you sit near the guava tree today. You've got the strongest nerves." Tin shook his head quickly. "Sure, my nerves are strong, but I'm not stupid. You sit there, I'll film it." Without a word, Granny Lou went inside, pulled out the item from her shirt pocket, and placed the golden tongue on the table. She looked at the 3 of them. "Take a look, what do you see?" The 3 boys fell silent. Lamb stammered, This looks like one of those golden tongues the shamans talk about. The kind used to seal the spirit of the dead. Right, Granny?" Tin nodded rapidly. "Yeah, I've heard that too. If someone's buried alive or thrown into a well without a golden tongue, their spirit comes back and tears everything apart." Hi whispered, "But why is it here?" Granny Lou told them about the rice jar spilling. Her voice was slow and steady, eyes unblinking. The air in the stall suddenly felt colder, even though the front door was wide open. Lamb lifted his glass of iced tea. And right then, a crack formed down the side of the glass. Water spilled onto the table, dripping steadily to the floor. No one said another word. That night, Granny Lou couldn't sleep. She sat in the kitchen, the golden tongue resting in her palm, just staring at it. Around midnight, footsteps echoed outside, slow, heavy, dragging plastic sandals across the cement. Muck, the old dog curled up in the corner, began to whimper. No one could see who was walking, but the footsteps, they stopped right outside the kitchen door, where the old well had once been sealed. The next morning, Granny Lou decided to take the golden tongue to the temple. As soon as the head monk saw it, he frowned. "This should not be kept in your home. It was once used to bind a corpse's spirit." If it has fallen out, it means someone is searching for it. Granny Lu asked the monk to keep it safe. But when she returned home, what she saw made her collapse onto the front step. The door to the storage room behind the house was wide open. The rusty lock had snapped clean in two, like someone had smashed it with a heavy object. And on the cement floor inside the storage room was a single wet footprint. Perfectly clear, but it hadn't rained that day, and no one had been allowed into the storage room at all. Granny Lu had become quieter lately, ever since the door to the storage room behind her house was broken into. There had been a strange atmosphere around her drink stall, damp and cold. As if wind was blowing in from somewhere, but you couldn't feel where it came from. No one dared to mention the old well buried beneath the concrete anymore. The golden tongue had been sent to the temple, but Granny still felt like something heavy was sitting on her chest. Her regular customers still came, but Thin Tin, Lamb, Taffy, and Hai, the drifter, had toned down their chatter, only daring to joke around in broad daylight. By late afternoon, they'd constantly glance at their watches, making sure to leave before 6. That day was scorching hot. Near noon, Mrs. Hao, daughter of Aunt Sao the noodle vendor from across the market, showed up at the stall with her little girl. Niam was 5 years old, her hair braided into 2 pigtails, always sucking on a giant lollipop. Mrs. Hao said, "Mom and I have been walking around the market all morning. Our feet are sore. Mind if we sit here for a bit? Granny Lu?" Granny nodded and poured a glass of lemonade for the little girl. Niam sat there swinging her legs and humming cheerfully. When Mrs. Hao went to the back to use the restroom, Niam suddenly fell silent. Granny Lu looked over and saw her eyes wide, staring under the table, her face slightly pale. Granny asked, "What's wrong, sweetheart?" The girl kept looking beneath the table and whispered softly, "Granny, there's someone lying under the table. She's wearing a black dress, has really long hair, and she's licking my foot." Granny Lu froze. The glass of iced water in her hand nearly slipped. She glanced down. There was nothing there, just an empty space under the table. But little Niam had pulled her feet up onto the chair, hugging her knees, her face pale as a sheet. Before Granny could say anything, Mrs. Hao came back and scolded, "What did I say about playing ghost games? I told you to stop scaring people." But Niam didn't answer. She just clung tightly to her mother's sleeve. Granny Lu forced a smile and handed over more water, saying, "Maybe she just saw my shadow under the table. Kids get spooked easily." After that day, Niam came down with a fever. She burned up for 2 full days, delirious, murmuring non-stop in her sleep. Over and over, she said, "The lady in black, the lady in black. She's standing where the fan is, she's watching me." When Thin Tin, Lamb, and Hai heard the news, they rushed over, covered in goosebumps. Thin Tin's voice cracked. "Holy crap, the spot with the fan is right where Granny Lu keeps that old table. Right next to the tin wall, the same place we always play cards." Hai added, "Hey, remember last month? That tattooed guy Tone used to sit there smoking and said he saw someone in a white headscarf with their head down. After that, we never saw him again." Lamb shivered. "Now that you mention it, Granny Lu, what are you gonna do?" Granny Lu lowered her voice. "I don't even know anymore. Ever since that golden tongue showed up, strange things keep happening. I can't sleep alone anymore. Every night I hear dishes clinking in the kitchen. One time I went to check. There was no one there, but a bowl had shattered. Clean in half. Not cracked, shattered." Thin Tin forced a laugh. "Then why keep the stall open? Shut it down already." Granny Lu glared. "And let you lot walk off without paying your iced tea tab?" Hai waved his hand. "Is sitting here drinking tea is helping chase away spirits. Granny, we're bringing good energy. Seriously." But it didn't stop there. The next afternoon, when Granny Lu went to tidy up the tables, she found a black elastic band curled up under the table, just like a tangle of hair. She took it out and burned it. The smoke was thick and smelled like burning hair, acrid and foul. That night, she heard whispering in the house, like someone murmuring just behind the kitchen wall. Strangely, the dog didn't bark, the cat didn't meow, but the storage room door opened and shut on its own 3 times. Loud and clear. Creak, creak, creak. The next morning, people saw Granny Lou at the stall early, but something was different. She didn't make tea, didn't arrange the tables. Instead, she quietly lit bundles of incense around the guava tree, along the tin wall, and even in the kitchen. A few neighbors passing by asked, "Granny, what are you praying for so early?" She simply answered, "Praying for peace." After they walked away, she murmured to herself, "If you're really still lingering here, I beg you, please don't scare the children anymore." But that night, someone walking past the stall saw a flashlight flickering inside. On, then off, on, then off again. When they came closer, the light went out completely. On the wooden table beneath the guava tree, there were 2 glasses of iced tea. One full, the other exactly half empty. Lately, the small alley behind the district market had begun to feel strange. No one said it outright, but everyone carried a quiet sense of unease. Granny Lou's stall was still open every day. The same regulars still came by, but no one stayed long. Thin Tin always claimed he had to leave urgently. Lamb, Taffy, pretended to be busy texting his new girlfriend. And Hi, the drifter, said he had to go drive someone who booked a ride. But truthfully, everyone knew they were all avoiding the night, avoiding the girl in the gray coat, avoiding the guava tree corner like it was cursed. On Thursday night, just as the neighborhood was preparing dinner, the power went out with a sudden pop. No warning. The blackout spread across the entire area, from the entrance of the alley to the far edge of the parking lot. The sky had no moon, no stars, just thick darkness like ink. Granny Lou was cleaning up her stall, still holding a glass of iced tea. When the lights went out, Muck, the old dog in the kitchen corner, immediately sat up and let out a soft whimper. Granny fumbled for the oil lamp and lit it. The flame flickered, casting a weak, trembling glow. She was alone in the stall, her shadow stretching long across the wall. Everything was unusually quiet, even the cicadas had stopped. A while later, Mr. Wah the motorbike driver arrived, holding a small flashlight. He sat down in his usual chair, took a long drag from his cigarette, and asked, "Power's out, huh?" Granny Lou nodded. "Yeah, I was pouring iced water when it just cut out. Strange, though, it's supposed to be a full moon tonight. But it's pitch black, no wind either. Feels heavy in the air." Mr. Wah furrowed his brow. "I was at home when I heard someone knock on my door. When I opened it, no one was there. Then the power cut out. I had a bad feeling, so I came over here." Just then, Thin Tin poked his head in, munching on a baguette. "Granny, you're looking rough tonight. Power's out and you're still lighting oil lamps? Don't know how to save money?" Granny Lou gave him a glare. "You planning to stay long? If not, don't complain when I turn off the light and leave you thirsty." Tin sat down, yawning and scratching his head. Hearing Mr. Wah talk about the knock gave me goosebumps. Power cut at that exact moment. And, just now I walked past the back storage room. I swear I heard something banging from inside. Mr. Wah shot him a look. "All right, enough. Quit spreading bad vibes." Lamb and Hai arrived, holding soda cans, and pulled up chairs. The group gathered around the table. The oil lamp's glow cast their shadows onto the wall, flickering, dancing, unclear. Granny Lou poured tea and said, "You lot better shut up. Tonight, if anyone mentions ghosts or spirits, I'll curse you into dust." But of course, the topic came up anyway, like it had been sitting on the edge of someone's tongue, waiting to leap out. "Hi," the drifter spoke quietly. "Last night, I passed by the stall and saw a shadow on the wall. Thought it was Granny sitting there. But it was weird, she was sitting, but the shadow was standing, right in the corner where the neon light's been dead for months. No light source, yet the shadow was crystal clear. Just standing there, long hair, face turned toward the stall. Tin's eyes widened. "You serious?" "Hi?" Hi nodded, hand trembling around his soda can. Mr. Hoa's voice dropped. "It's not the first time I've heard about wall shadows. Back when Twee was still alive, people said she'd sit crying at the guava tree, but no one ever saw her tears. One night I was driving late, saw a shadow standing in the middle of the road. No person, just the shadow stretching long, like it had been hung upside down from the sky." The whole stall went silent. Granny Lou gripped her teacup tightly, eyes staring into the darkness outside. Muck, the old dog in the kitchen, suddenly jumped up and barked once, then howled long and low, like someone was choking it. Granny rushed inside and found Muck cowering under the cupboard, eyes bloodshot. On the wall was a second shadow, taller, standing right next to hers, face turned inward, long hair draping over the shoulders. Granny stood frozen for a few seconds, then blew out the oil lamp. The room plunged into darkness, filled only by her heavy breathing and the pounding of her heartbeat in her ears. Outside, the boys were still sitting, but no one spoke. A gust of wind swept through, lifting the curtain slightly, just enough to reveal a dark corner inside. They all felt something had just passed by. Tin stood up. "Granny, I'm heading home. These blackouts are killing my heart." Lamb followed behind. "Let me know when the lights come back on. This kind of vibe is aging me." Hi, carrying his soda, muttered under his breath, "A shadow without light? What the hell kind of creepy nonsense is that?" Granny Lou remained. In her hand was a lighter she hadn't lit. In front of her, on the tin wall that rippled with wind, were two shadows pressed close together, one hers, and one belonging to someone who hadn't left. The shadow on the wall during the blackout the other night had left Granny Lou unable to sleep. She crouched in the kitchen until nearly dawn, still holding the lighter in her hand, not daring to strike it again. Muck, the old dog, lay slumped by her feet, occasionally growling deep in its throat. That second shadow on the wall, Granny didn't know who it belonged to. But one thing she was certain of, it wasn't hers. The next morning, the stall opened later than usual. Thin Tin, Hi, the Drifter, and Lamb, Taffy, showed up early, saw the door still shut, and stood outside teasing each other. Tin said, "Granny Lou probably dropped dead inside. That blackout last night must have let a ghost brush her neck." Lamb shot back, "Her neck's tough as nails. Any ghost that touched it would have broken its hand." Hi chimed in, "All right, enough. Don't joke like that. When I walked past the guava tree last night, I got chills all over, like someone was standing right behind me." Tin laughed, "You're just a scaredy cat. Bet it was your sugar crashing from that no-sugar sugarcane juice." When Granny Lou finally opened the door, she looked clearly exhausted, dark circles under her eyes, face pale, carrying a fresh bundle of incense. She didn't say a word, just walked straight to the guava tree and began planting incense sticks all around, lighting them one by one. The boys looked at each other. Tin asked, "Granny, who are you praying for? Is today a full moon or something?" Granny Lou answered curtly, "Praying for someone who's never been prayed for. Last night, someone came, stood right next to me, didn't speak, just breathed, cold as ice, into my ear. Just then, Mr. Wah the motorbike driver arrived. Hearing that, his face went pale. He sat down slowly, fumbling with a cigarette, trying to light it, but his hands shook too much to strike a flame. Granny Lou looked at him and said softly, "It's time. Wah, you need to speak up." Mr. Wah swallowed hard, turned his face away. Tin looked confused. "Speak what? What's going on?" Lamb gave him a side glance. "Let's just listen. Don't ask questions like that, unless you're ready to stay up all night." Granny Lou lowered her voice. "I'll tell you. This happened 15 years ago. Back then, the storage room behind the stall didn't exist. It was a well. There was a girl named Twee. She worked as a maid in the house of the landowner. Sweet girl. Small. Pale. Everyone liked her. Then one day, she got pregnant. Mr. Wah closed his eyes. Lips trembling. The boys held their breath. Granny Lu continued. People said the baby was Mr. Hoa's. But he denied it. Around that time, the well dried up. No one used it anymore. The landowner decided to seal it and build a storage room. That night was the last time anyone saw Tui. Her body was never found. But some child said they saw her sitting by the well crying. Then people heard crying at night. Then there were glasses of water left on the table that were half empty by morning. Then came the golden tongue, in my rice jar. Tin shuddered. So, she was buried alive in the well? Granny Lu nodded slowly. I won't say that for sure. But I saw her that night, pregnant, walking toward the well. And after that, no one ever saw her again. Mr. Wah sighed, voice hoarse. It was my fault. I loved Tui, but I was a coward. Couldn't take responsibility. When people started gossiping, I ran away for a few months. When I came back, it was too late. I remember hearing 3 knocks on my wall at midnight. At first, I thought it was rats. But it got clearer. 3 knocks. Then a faint voice, calling my name. After the night of the offering, Granny Lu fell slightly ill. No fever, no cough, just drained. Like her life energy had been pulled away. She sat slumped in front of the stall. Dark circles under her eyes. Sipping her tea only to set it back down. Untouched. When Thin Tin, Hai, the drifter, and Lamb, Taffy, came by and saw her like that. None of them had the heart to joke. Tin barely warmed his seat before nudging her. Granny, did a real ghost eat that offering? My mom says if the food's still there but the water's gone, it means someone accepted it. Granny Lu replied flatly. I don't care who ate it. All I know is, for the past few nights, someone has stood right at the kitchen door, knocking 3 times, then silence. Hai slapped his thigh. That's it. Just like Mr. Wah said from the beginning, 3 knocks. I used to think he was making it up. But now even Granny saw it. It's real. Lamb gave a weak laugh. Well, Granny called her back, and now she's answering. Whoever still owes her better take care of it themselves instead of letting Granny carry the guilt. Tin nodded. Yeah, someone tell Mr. Wah, if anyone's got a debt, it's him. 15 years. And he never even lit a single stick of incense for her. Granny Lu glanced out toward the alley. Her voice dropping low. I've decided. We're doing a proper ceremony. A night offering. We'll invite a real spirit master. Not to drive her away, but to call her. Call Tui back, so she can be properly named, honored, and apologized to at her own altar. When Mr. Wah heard about it, he objected at first. His face was taut like a drawn bowstring. Cigarette half burnt in his hand. But he couldn't bring himself to take a puff. He said quietly, but what if the one we call back isn't Tui? Granny Lu shot him a hard look. What else is there to lose? Every night someone's calling your name and you still pretend not to know? That girl died with no justice. 15 years. And not one person dared say her name. That evening, Granny Lu called for Master Nyan, a temple spirit master known for his strong energy. He was old, thin, hair snow white, his voice soft but firm as steel. After hearing her story, he nodded right away. It must be done, but it must be done properly. Hour of the rat, tomorrow night, midnight sharp. The offering doesn't need fancy dishes, just incense, eggs, rice and salt, rainwater, and a white incense bowl that's never been used. Word spread quickly through the neighborhood. Some fish vendors whispered, what if they bring her back and can't send her away? Then we'll all be haunted. But everyone understood. Things had gone too far. It had to be done. Granny Lu agreed. Mr. Wah quietly gathered the items. Lamb and Tin helped set the table, lit incense around the guava tree, and arranged the chairs just as the master instructed. At exactly midnight, the group stood behind Master Nyan, each holding a lit incense stick. Sweat beaded their foreheads. Though the night was cool, The master began chanting, his wooden fish drum tapping a steady rhythm that echoed like distant thunder. A breeze stirred, gentle but steady, enough to rustle the old guava leaves, enough to make the oil lamp flicker like it might go out. As Master Nyan neared the end of his chant, he suddenly stopped, his eyes locked on the space in front of the offering table. He whispered, "She's here, but she didn't come alone. There are three, one behind, one sitting at the guava tree, one standing at the kitchen door." The group shivered. Hai nearly dropped his incense. Lam whispered, "Three? Who are the other two?" The master didn't answer. He simply said, "The woman standing in the middle, her face is unclear, but her hair is long. Her eyes are looking straight at Mr. Hua." Mr. Hua froze, as if tied down by invisible ropes. He didn't move. His face was pale, lips tightly shut. Tin turned to speak, but before he could, Mr. Hoa's voice trembled. "Tui, is that you? If it's you, forgive me. I was wrong, but I never forgot you. Every night I still dream of you. Still hear your voice calling." At that moment, the oil lamp went out. A blast of cold wind swept through, strong enough to scatter the incense smoke. The wooden drum fell silent. Master Nyan stepped back and murmured, "She just lifted her head." Before anyone could react, there was a sharp sound of breaking glass from inside the kitchen. The teacup Granny Lu had left out the day before shattered. Tea spilled across the tiled floor, mixed with a thin line of blood, red and fine like thread. No one said another word. The ceremony ended in silence. Master Nyan packed up his things and walked away, leaving only one final sentence behind: "She's not alone. Someone else is holding her back." Tonight wasn't enough. After the midnight offering, the small neighborhood by the market felt completely silent, as if no one had ever lived there. No one dared mention the lights going out during the ceremony, and even less so the thin thread of blood beneath the temporary altar. But the next morning, just as Granny Lu brought out the tea kettle to open the stall, Mr. Hua was already there, waiting. His face was blank, eyes sunken, hands trembling like a man with a terrible illness. He spoke slowly, one word at a time. "We have to dig. If we don't, there'll be no peace." Granny Lu sat down, tried to pour tea, but nothing came out. Her hands were shaking. After a long pause, she asked, "Are you sure, Hua? That place, it's the guava tree. People say it's a cold grave. If we dig it up and—" Mr. Hua cut her off. "It's not an if anymore. It's certain. Last night, she stood at the foot of my bed. Didn't cry, didn't speak, just looked at me. That look, it wasn't blame anymore. It was despair." News spread faster than the first sugarcane drink at the market. The whole neighborhood was buzzing. Some opposed, some agreed. One old lady said, "What if there's nothing there? Then how do we live with the shame of disturbing a grave? But if there really is something, maybe we were better off not knowing." But others stayed quiet, because deep down, they knew this was bound to happen sooner or later. That afternoon, Mr. Hua brought a shovel. Lam and Hai came to help. Granny Lu didn't say anything, she just stood by the kitchen door, staring out at the old guava tree. It had stood there for over 20 years. Wide canopy, deep roots. Everyone thought it brought good luck. Shade from the sun, shelter from the wind. Now, they knew, it might have been covering something no one was meant to find. Thin Tin didn't dare get close. He sat at a far table, chewing on his bread and muttering, "You guys are crazy, digging up decades of history. If you hit something cursed, all your teeth will fall out." Hai shot back, "Yours already did, so you're safe." Lam held the shovel and gave a crooked smile. "I'm only digging the topsoil. Okay? Anything creepy, I'm out." Mr. Hua didn't smile. He simply struck the earth with the first shovel. The ground was dry, hard, and a musty smell rose into the air. On the fifth strike, the shovel bounced back, like it had hit something solid. He reached down with his hands, and stopped. A tattered mat. The fabric was decayed and torn, but still soft to the touch. The group fell silent. Lamb stammered. Is that wrapped around something? Mr. Wah didn't answer. Hands trembling, he peeled back the layers. And there was a section of an arm bone, yellowed with age, still wearing a small silver bracelet. Granny Lou stepped out from the house, her mouth moving but no sound coming out. That bracelet, it was Thigh's. I remember. She wore it when she first came to work. There were initials carved inside, TH. Lamb gently removed more of the fabric. The bracelet was there, faint engraving still visible. Hyde turned away, murmuring, "My God, after all these years, it was right here." Mr. Wah dropped to his knees, face in his hands. He didn't cry, didn't make a sound, just sat there, motionless. No one dared interrupt the silence. Muck, the old dog in the corner of the yard, barked 3 times, then lay down and went quiet. That evening, Granny Lou notified the authorities. They came, took notes, collected the remains for examination, but everyone already knew. No test was needed. A makeshift altar was set up. Incense was lit, the name written, Tran Ti Tui, year of death unknown, finally resting after 18 years lost. That night, for the first time, Granny Lou's stall stayed lit past midnight. Everyone gathered. No one spoke loudly. No one laughed. Mr. Wah stood up and spoke slowly. "I was the one who caused this. I was a coward. I ran. She died in anger. In silence. No one knew. No one cared. From now on, I promise, I'll honor her every year. For the rest of my life. Living or dead, I will repay this debt." Thin Tin exhaled, softly said, "At least now, there's some peace." Granny Lou looked toward the guava tree, now bare. The light hid her face, and her eyes glistened. She whispered, more to herself than anyone else, "Maybe now, she won't come back. But then, right at 7 p.m., just like every night." The wind rose again, light, cold, and on the old table beneath the tree, though no one had placed it there, sat a glass of iced tea, half full. If you've listened this far, thank you so much for staying with me until the very end of this story. In the countryside, there are things people don't talk about, but everyone feels them. Like the shadow beneath a tree, or the wind that drifts through the house each night. If this story made you reflect about love, memory, or simply reminded you of a slice of your childhood, please leave a comment. Every word you share is what keeps me going and inspires me to tell more meaningful stories. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss the next episode. Each one is a journey, full of feeling and deeply familiar.